in the text Astadai by using a constituency grammar. The Greco-Roman grammatical tradition also engaged in morphological analysis studies in Arabic morphology, conducted by Mara al-Arwa and Ahmad b. Ali Masud, date back to at least 1200 CE. The linguistic term morphology was coined by August Schleicher in 1859. Fundamental concepts, lexemes, and word forms. The term word has no well-defined meaning. Instead, two related terms are used in morphology, lexeme and word form. Generally, a lexeme is a set of inflected word forms that is often represented with the citation form in small capitals. For instance, the lexeme eat contains the word forms eat, eats, eaten, and ate. Eat and eats are thus considered different words forms belonging to the same lexeme. Eat and eater, on the other hand, are different lexemes, as they refer to two different concepts. Thus, there are three rather different notions of word. Prosodic word versus morphological word. Here are examples from other languages of the failure of a single phonological word to coincide with a single morphological word form. In Latin, one way to express the concept of noun phrase1 and noun phrase2, as in apples and oranges, is to suffix k to the second noun phrase apples, oranges, and, as it were, an extreme level of this theoretical quandary posed by some phonological words is provided by the Kwakawala language. In Kwakawala, as in a great many other languages, meaning relations between nouns, including possession and semantic case, are formulated by affixes instead of by independent words. The three-word English phrase, with his club, where with identifies its dependent noun phrase as an instrument and his denotes a possession relation, would consist of two words or even just one word in many languages. Unlike most languages, Kwakawala semantic affixes phonologically attach not to the lexeme they pertain to semantically, but to the preceding lexeme. Consider the following example. In Kwakawala, sentences begin with what corresponds to an English verb, quickstida, bg1 mikaya kuasa sisi tel wagwe morpheme by morpheme translation. Quickstida equals clubbed pivot determiner bg1 mikaya equals man accusative determiner kuasa ss equals otter instrumental 3sg possessive tel wagwe equals club. The man clubbed the otter with his club. Notation notes accusative case marks an entity that something is done to. Determiners are words such as the fist, that. The concept of pivot is a theoretical construct that is not relevant to this discussion, that is, to the speaker of Kwakawala. The sentence does not contain the words, him the otter, or with his club. Instead, the markers pivot, the referring to man, attaches not to the noun bg1 man, but to the verb. The markers kaya, accusative, the referring to otter, attach to bg1 instead of to kuasa, otter, etc. In other words, a speaker of Kwakawala does not perceive the sentence to consist of these phonological words. Quixt, idal bg1 makaya kuasa sisi tel wagwe clubbed pivot. The mani hit the otter with hissy club. A central publication on this topic is the recent volume edited by Dixon and I. Henvald 2007, examining the mismatch between prosodic phonological and grammatical definitions of word in various Amazonian, Australian Aboriginal, Caucasian, Eskimo, Indo-European, Native North American, West African, and Sign languages. Apparently, a wide variety of languages make use of the hybrid linguistic unit clitic, possessing the grammatical features of independent words but the prosodic phonological lack of freedom of bound morphemes. The intermediate status of clitics poses a considerable challenge to linguistic theory, inflection versus word formation. Given the notion of a lexeme, it is possible to distinguish two kinds of morphological rules. Some morphological rules relate to different forms of the same lexeme, while other rules relate to different lexemes. Rules of the first kind are inflectional rules, while those of the second kind are rules of word formation. The generation of the English plural dogs from dog is an inflectional rule, while compound phrases and words like dog catcher or dishwasher are examples of word formation. Informally, word formation rules form new words. More accurately, new new lexemes, while inflection rules yield variant forms of the same word lexeme. The distinction between inflection and word formation is not at all clear-cut. There are many examples where linguists fail to agree whether a given rule is inflection or word formation. The next section will attempt to clarify this distinction. Word formation is a process where one combines two complete words, whereas with inflection you can combine a suffix with some verb to change its form to subject of the sentence. For example, in the present indefinite, we use go with subject I, we, you, they in plural nouns, whereas for third-person singular pronouns he, she, it, and singular nouns, we use goes. So this S is an inflectional marker and is used to match with its subject. A further difference is that in word formation, the resultant word may differ from its source word's grammatical category, whereas in the process of inflection the word never changes its grammatical category. Types of word formation. There is a further distinction between two primary kinds of morphological word formation: derivation and compounding. Compounding is a process of word formation that involves combining complete word forms into a single compound. Form is your dog catcher, therefore, is a compound, as both dog and catcher are complete word forms in their own right but are subsequently treated as parts of one form. Your derivation involves affixing bound, i.e. non-independent, forms to existing lexemes, whereby the addition of the affix derives a new lexeme. The word independent, for example, is derived from the word dependent by using the prefix in, while dependent itself is derived from the verb depend. There is also word formation in the processes of clipping, in which a portion of a word is removed to create a new one, blending, in which two parts of different words are blended into one, acronyms, in which each letter of the new word represents a specific word in the representation, i.e., NATO for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, borrowing, in which words from one language are taken and used in another, and finally coinage, in which a new word is created to represent a new object or concept. Paradigms in morphosyntax. A linguistic paradigm is the complete set of related word forms associated with a given lexeme. The familiar examples of paradigms are the conjugations of verbs and the declensions of nouns. Also, arranging the word forms of a lexeme into tables by classifying them according to shared inflectional categories such as tense, aspect, mood, number, gender, or case. Organize as such. For example, the personal pronouns in English can be organized into tables using the categories of person, first, second, third, number, singular versus plural, gender, masculine, feminine, neuter, and case, nominative, oblique, genitive. The inflectional categories used to group word forms into paradigms cannot be chosen arbitrarily. They must be categories that are relevant to stating the syntactic rules of the language. Person and number are categories that can be used to define paradigms in English, because English has grammatical agreement rules that require the verb in a sentence to appear in an inflectional form that matches the person and number of the subject. Therefore, the syntactic rules of English care about the difference between dog and dogs, because the choice between these two forms determines which form of the verb is used. However, no syntactic rule for the difference between dog and dog catcher, or dependent and independent. The first two are nouns and the second two are adjectives. An important difference between inflection and word formation is that inflected word forms of lexemes are organized into paradigms that are defined by the requirements of syntactic rules, and there are no corresponding syntactic rules for word formation. The relationship between syntax and morphology is called morphosyntax and concerns itself with inflection and paradigms, not with word formation or compounding. Allomorphi. Above morphological rules are described as analogies between word forms. Dog is to dogs as cat is to cats and as dish is to dishes. In this case, the analogy applies both to the form of the words and to their meaning. In each pair, the first word means one of X, while the second, two or more of of X, and the difference is always the plural form S or S affixed to the second word, signaling the key distinction between singular and plural entities. One of the largest sources of complexity in morphology is that this one-to-one correspondence between meaning and form scarcely applies to every case in the language. In English, there are word-form pairs like ox, oxen, goose, geese, and sheep, sheep, where the difference between the singular and the plural is signaled in a way that departs from the regular pattern, or is not signaled at all. Even cases regarded as regular, such as S, are not so simple. The S in dogs is not pronounced the same way as the S in cats, and, in plurals such as dishes, a vowel is added before the S. These cases, where the same distinction is effected by alternative forms of a word, constitute allomorphy. Phonological rules constrain which sounds can appear next to each other in a language, and morphological rules, when applied blindly, would often violate phonological rules by resulting in sound sequences that are prohibited in the language in question. For example, to form the plural of dish by simply appending an S to the end of the word would result in the form asterisk, which is not permitted by the phonotactics of English. In order to rescue the word, a vowel sound is inserted between the root and the plural marker, and results. Similar rules apply to the pronunciation of the S in dogs and cats. It depends on the quality, voiced versus unvoiced, of the final preceding phoneme. Lexical morphology. Lexical morphology is the branch of morphology that deals with the lexicon, which morphologically conceived is the collection of lexemes in a language. As such, it concerns itself primarily with word formation, derivation and compounding models. There are three principal approaches to morphology, and each tries to capture the distinctions above in different ways. Morpheme-based morphology, which makes use of an item and arrangement approach. Lexeme-based morphology, which normally makes use of an item and process approach. Word-based morphology, which normally makes use of a word and paradigm approach, while the associations indicated between the concepts in each item in that list are very strong, they are not absolute. Morpheme-based morphology. In morpheme-based morphology, word forms are analyzed as